Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Chilling Reign, make sure you go ahead and check out the Poketown store. You can get a 5% discount on your order using that code Omnipoke. Hello everyone, it's me on the main camera. We are going to be going over a few things for IRL getting back to Pokemon. Restrictions are being lifted in the UK on Monday, and I have been doing a ton of prep IRL because rotation is on the way as well. So I've had my binders out, I've had lots of my cards out, and I was just thinking of how many people have actually got into Pokemon over the last couple of years and maybe haven't even played in a tournament. That's actually a thing. And hopefully, even if they're not going to be CP related tournaments, we can be going back to stores quite soon and actually get our hands on real cards and actually shuffle cards again. It's so sad that that's something that I really do miss, but we are finally back. I've actually been to a couple of very small events where it's been like 6-player pods. It's all been very safe. Don't worry about it. We've been wearing masks the entire time. But it's really just got me back in that itch of having real cards to hand all the time. I've been doing a ton of sorting for rotation and whatnot. So I thought I'd go over the essentials for you guys to have when you are going to tournaments and what you need to have with you, what I would recommend a lot of the time, and a few tips and tricks for keeping your cards sort of organized to help you save yourself time when you are trying to build all sorts of decks rather than just having this mad dash all over the place where you're sort of rummaging through deck boxes all the time, just trying to find cards that you knew you put somewhere, but you never can quite find it, and then you end up having to borrow it from a friend or just buy extra copies, which is usually inefficient and bad. So yeah, let's go over the things that I would recommend if I was going to a tournament. So first of all, you want to get yourself a playmat. Here is a lovely playmat. This is a custom Omnipoke one that I bring to my smaller events. Obviously, I'm a sponsored player for Complexity Card Gaming, so I also have a sponsored playmat. But I would definitely suggest getting a playmat if you don't have one. A playmat will protect your sleeves, and ultimately, it's going to just be an easier sort of quality of life thing for you, where it's just easy to pick up and put down cards. It sounds like such a pathetic thing to say, but the amount of shuffling that you do, the amount of interactions that you have with your own hand and all that sort of stuff, you will want to have a playmat most of the time. It feels terrible whenever you do forget that. And yeah, just working off a table is usually awful, especially, you don't know how clean things are. So you want to make sure that your sleeves have the most longevity to them to also save yourself some money, right? So if you're using a playmat, it's going to help them get nicks, stop them from getting nicks and scratches. It's going to just be overall better quality of life for you guys. The next thing I would suggest is going to be an ETB. And an ETB for me is going to look, well, you know what an ETB looks like. But the inside of an ETB is going to look something like this, where I have my deck, I have my dice bag, which is for your damage counters, and I'm also going to have spare sleeves. I always use Dragon Shield sleeves, by the way. They are my favorite brand to use. I think they are good for shuffling, and I also think they have longevity to them. Typically, I've found other makes of sleeves usually either get like dings and dents in the corners, or they don't have a good shuffle feel, or they just get grimy, and like if you have sweaty hands, you can get loads of like I don't know, like sweat spots on all of your cards. It's a really gross thing, but you do see it on other people's sleeves, especially if they are used heavily. So yeah, I always have my dice bag, which is a pretty simple thing, where you're literally just going to have your damage counters. At the moment, you have a GX marker, but you will not need this post-rotation, so you can actually take this out of your dice bag. And then you want to have burn and poison markers. One thing I use for burn and poison markers as well is when I'm using abilities, you can just go ahead and throw these markers on your Pokemon, similar to the ability used markers that you often see. Some people use those little metallic things. You can just use these markers on like your bench Pokemon to show that they've used their ability. If you use the like reverse side of the burn or poison or whatever, that's a good way to keep track of when you've used abilities. For example, if you're playing like Shadow Rider, you don't want to overuse your ability by mistake and accidentally draw like too many cards or whatever. So keeping track of your abilities used is often like a good policy. So then you've got your deck box. I'm just using a standard Pokemon one, but there's all sorts here. But it's a good way to keep your cards in check again. You want your sleeves to be safe for as long as possible. You have to use opaque black sleeves, and you can only use like block colors. I would always suggest darker colors, so there's no chance of you seeing the Pokemon card, like the back of the card ever, because you just don't want to go through any of that sort of stuff. So the darker colors I would suggest most of the time. You can use official Pokemon ones, but they have terrible shuffle feel. I would say basically always go for Dragon Shield or any other alternative that you would prefer, but that's my recommendation. So yeah, get your 60 card deck nice and sleeved up. You basically have to use sleeved cards if you want to, and a deck box is going to keep things nice, neat, and in order. Make sure that you don't lose any cards all the time. So yeah, I think an ETB is usually really easy to slip into the bag. And the reason we have additional sleeves on hand is not only for if you have like splits in your sleeves when you're playing, which of course is something that can happen, but it also means that if you are getting like prize booster packs or anything like that and you actually pull good cards, you then actually have sleeves on hand to like sleeve up things that you've got, which is just reasonable to me, I think. So yeah, the ETB is often something that I will bring alongside the playmat. I think that's really like realistically all that you need to bring. Those are the two essential things, right? Bring your deck and bring a playmat. A few other things you definitely want to have. You want to have a pen with you so you can sign match slips. And it's just like a generally good, useful thing that you can have. I would also always suggest a bottle of water or any liquid that you would prefer. Water's obviously the best for you because you want to stay hydrated. Obviously, we're probably not going back to like regionals or large scale events anytime soon. Hopefully we can. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. I'm still pessimistic. But you definitely want to have water on hand all the time and other liquids just because you don't want to get dehydrated. It's bad for the brain. It's just bad for you in general. So you want to have one of those on hand. Also snacks if you are going to like regionals or larger scale events. I would always suggest things like cereal bars, a great one, fruit, basically high energy things that just aren't like sugary and disgusting. So yeah, that's always a good shout for you. But then other additional stuff. So if you filled your bag with the playmat, the ETB, your drink, and a pen, those are pretty much all the things you need. A watch would also be quite helpful. Obviously, like you have a watch on your phone and that stuff, so it's not for timekeeping just in general. It's for timekeeping exactly when you're in a tournament setting, because you're not allowed to look at your phone during official gameplay for tournaments. So yeah, having a watch on hand is going to be good. It means that you're not at mercy of like where the clocks are in a certain venue. It means you're always going to be able to keep track of how long your game has been going on for timekeeping. So yeah. The next thing I would suggest is a binder. Now, you can have a binder for a couple of reasons. I, again, am just using a Dragon Shield 4 row here, or a quad row, or whatever they're called. But I always like quad rows when I'm doing binders, because it makes things easy to figure out when you have play sets of things. Play sets are exactly 4 copies of cards, obviously. And I've just done a few changes just for post-rotation, so I've got a load of the staples. I can't even see where the camera is, so I'm just guesstimating here. My binder right now is pretty barren, to be honest with you guys. There's not too much on here. I've got my Shadow Calyrex's IRL because I started playing with those recently. But yeah, I've done a ton of sorting and organizing for post-rotation. But yeah, having a playables binder on hand is going to make things easy when you are building specific decks, because you know exactly where to go to look for those sorts of things. So I would definitely suggest either having your playable binder on hand, or at the very least a trade binder with you, because obviously when you're mingling IRL, it's a good opportunity for you to get cards that you still need, and when you have your duplicates available to you, a nice binder on the side is going to be like helpful for you. You can have it all in one binder if you want to. I typically have a smaller trade binder on hand, and I don't always bring my playables binder with me to events. But it's really if I'm unsure about what deck I want to play that I would bring something like that, and then I would bring potentially like another deck box just with like the like trainer cards and like commons, uncommons, energy cards, that sort of thing that I would have for basically any deck that I wanted to play during that weekend. Usually you want to go to a tournament knowing what you're going to play, so you can literally just turn up with a deck and like maybe like 3 or 4 cards that you're debating about for like your 60th inclusion, something like that. But if you're really undecisive, or if you're if you like having the option to play all sorts of decks and you know that you're going to test a bunch like over the course of the evening or whatever, and you want to make some last minute decisions, bringing a binder with you of playables is always reasonable. And I think in general it's just good practice to have a binder of your playable cards. And again, I think 4 pockets are the best way for you here, because you can just see at a glance what cards you need and whatever else in just like a really nice format. I think it's much better than the 3 pockets, or the 9 pocket pages I should say, in general. The last thing I have for when I'm at home, these things basically never come with me to tournaments, but I also just use more ETBs. ETBs are the best thing in the world, and I literally just put a little tag here So for this one, it's trainers and tools. I've also got like, I basically have a row of these all in one place, like on a set of drawers or whatever, where I have like special energy separated, common and uncommons that are playable, and supporters. So I have like a ton of ETBs just open like this that I can simply sift through. It's a really easy thing to just sort of sift through these, grab chunks out. I need to actually empty a bunch of this stuff for rotation, and it's going to be a lot smaller of a stack of cards. But typically, this is a really easy way to just keep things in order. I find it personally easier to keep things separated between like trainers, tools, stadiums, like supporters, special energy. It means that, you know, there's only a handful of good ones in any format, so you're not shuffling through these for too long. So that's how I organize my playable cards outside of my holographics. I always have my like shiny stuff in a binder to keep them safer, but all my like commons, uncommons, I just keep loose in an ETB. You know, it's not like they're getting damaged or anything like that. They're pretty safe where they are, and they're not moving around too much. But yeah, that's basically my rundown of how I like to prepare for an IRL tournament, as we're getting back to those soon, hopefully, even if they're not for CP right now. And maybe in the future we'll be back actually playing in large-scale tournaments. And that's just a little insight into my organization for IRL as well. Hope you did enjoy this video. Hopefully it was helpful for people who haven't been to play in IRL for a decent amount of time, or if you've never played in a tournament. Let me know now down below if it's going to be your first tournament back in IRL, sort of like after lockdown. And if you got into the game and have only played online until this point, it's pretty crazy that there are still people out there, but I'm sure there are tons. So yeah, hope you guys did enjoy this video. Hopefully it was helpful for you. If not, and yeah, I will see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.